Hey everyone, let's look at option 3 for the Unit 4 project. This option asks you to pretend that you are a staff editorial writer for a publication like The Atlantic or The Hill. Basically, a publication where you're going to have an informed audience, but a non-academic one. Your editor has asked you to respond to the claim that the media operate as a fourth branch of government. And you're tasked then with writing an op-ed of about 450 words, taking a clear position on this claim, and anchoring your argument in a recent news story or controversy involving one of the branches of government. And the reason I ask you to anchor it in a current news story or controversy is because typically editorial and op-ed columns will have sort of a news peg, right? Some current event, something to make them newsworthy. But even when they are about something sort of big and general, like the media as a fourth branch of government. Now, if you have sort of a past case that you're really interested in, we could potentially pretend it's sort of like the anniversary of that coming up, and that's cool. If you want to do that, just run it by me first so we can sort of make sure, because the others, especially the first one, really ask you to look at sort of a current event. So I just want to make sure that if you're not engaging with current events, you have sort of a good justification for it. Now, to give just a little bit more context for this, we know that the Constitution created a system of checks and balances, and that we often hear about the media as being sort of a fourth branch. So these checks and balances between our three official institutions of government are meant to stop any of them from becoming tyrannical. And the media is also meant to stop any of the branches from becoming tyrannical. So it fits naturally. But of course, the checks and balances also are to each branch checks and balances both of the other two and are checked and balanced by the other two. Is the media sort of checked and balanced by the other branches? Maybe yes, maybe no. I want to hear from you on what you think about that. Does the media, as not sort of an official branch of government, still kind of act like a branch of government? And in practice, we might want to rely on sort of looking at things like investigative work and sort of watchdog powers, or potentially it's a lapdog, and we want to be looking at how it's not watching the other branches. Its agenda setting power, its framing choices, its editorial choices can influence how the branches exercise their power and are constrained in the exercise of their power. And again, how the branches might limit, constrain the media as well. So your op-ed should, again, try to tie this to a concrete example of media coverage, and it should take a clear position on whether or not the media does function as a fourth branch of government. Now, you might take a nuanced position. It might be sort of like it does in some cases and not in others. And we can see, like, in this story, it sort of did, but also it sort of didn't. But I want it to be clear that you are arguing something, right? You have to have an argument. You have to have an opinion, right? And I do also want to see you arguing whether this is good or bad for democracy, right? Because that's often something that an editorialist is going to do. They're going to say, the media acted like a fourth branch of government in this case, and that's good. Or the media acted like a fourth branch of government, and that's bad. Or the media didn't act like a fourth branch of government, and that's good or bad, right? So I do want to see you actually giving some normative opinion there as well. And generally, because it's an op-ed, you should be sort of balancing evidence with voice. In other words, I want to see a well-supported argument for sort of an intelligent reader, a knowledgeable reader, but one who isn't going to know, like, the technical jargon. Does that mean you don't add the technical jargon? Maybe or maybe not. But you want to consider that audience. Now, when you are doing that, I do want to sort of stress that because this is an op-ed, you might not want to have like citations in the normal way. If that's the case, footnotes could work, or maybe you actually hyperlink the things. A lot of op-eds will have hyperlinks to their sources. That could be a great way of going about it. You can also sometimes quote scholars, right? Some op-eds do quote scholars directly. So, you can sort of pretend that a scholar commented to you rather than you're just quoting their book if you want. You can have that little bit of sort of license to do that if that would help you make this sort of feel like an op-ed. Now, as always, the creative part isn't like the big component. I want to make sure you're engaging with the class materials and the class concepts, and the creative part is just sort of a fun way of going about that. Now, finally, the end, you'll tack on your reflection as always, and that I want you to think about how trying to translate this to a public audience might have affected the way you developed and defended your argument. How did you use these academic concepts in a way that the public might understand? And was there anything about sort of doing this translation, as it were, that helped you sort of take your political analysis and maybe make it persuasive, right? Did you learn anything from that process? Did it maybe change your opinion on any of this? Did sort of arguing, yes, this is good, or no, this is terrible, make you sort of think twice about the opinion you were stating, right? And did it make you think twice about the media's role and how the media acts as a fourth branch. Where did second come from? So with that in mind, I think that is it. And I look forward to seeing your op-ed if this is the option you select.